we're staying then with the 2008 age group, potentially even the golden age in the La Masia Academy. I don't know, Arsene, if you would go along with that or pick a different age group perhaps. But sticking with the 2008s, we have two cousins, starting with Guille Fernandez. He's a central midfielder. He joined Barça from Espanyol in 2018. Already been on the bench in La Liga and the Champions League, but at the time of recording has not made his first team debut. But I can tell you by the time we record this and edit it, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a performance for the first team. He's very, very close to getting involved, and the talent that he has makes that justified because he is a top player to watch out for.
Yeah, definitely. Gile is a big talent as a midfielder, maybe since Gavi. And Gile's physique helped him quite a bit in his youth stage, as he was always taller than his opponents. And since then, he has been promoted above his own category in order to be able to adapt to face more physically prepared players, but he was still doing very well, scoring goals, assisting, being the main guy from that midfield for his youth teams. He's an interesting player because he's not your typical La Masia midfielder, I would say, who is like known for technique, passing, creativity, and so on. But he is also like, I would say, Jude Bellingham wise player. And this season he has been promoted straight to Barça Athletic, and it can be seen that he's a bit struggling, maybe physically, because he used to using that his physique to his advantage, and when you make that jump to professional football, it can lose that fact. So he's still adapting to that, finding his way to playing at that professional level. But he's getting better with every minute, and the fact that he was called up for La Liga, it showed that Hansi Flick has been impressed by him, and maybe in the future we could see him as a prominent player in the first team.
And I fully agree with Jude Bellingham comparison. I think the differences are he's basically a Jude Bellingham with this La Masia and Spanish touch. So he carries the ball slightly more than Bellingham. He likes to have the ball at his feet more than Jude Bellingham. But yeah, it's a really good comparison. I think that Guille Fernandez is considered as the next big thing after Lamine Yamal, and there are a lot of expectations, and of course his cousin Tony Fernandez, which we will talk about in a few minutes. But I would like to ask you a question, Arsen. I am not an insider like you of La Masia, but I read a lot and I watch a lot. And would you say that Tony Fernandez had a better year than Guye Fernandez? Because that's the popular opinion right now. I'm a big fan of both. But do you think that the past year Tony was better than Guye?
Let's say last season, I think Tony had a much better season because he was constantly playing with Juvenil B, which is under 18, and he was scoring goals, assisting. While for Gillett was he first started with Juvenil A, which is under 19, but he struggled in the first months, and that is why the coaches decided to bring him down to Juvenil B, to under 18, and since then he had a much better season since then, as he was able to adapt to much level category. But in general, I would say Tony was better last season, and also this season he was also incredible for the first team during preseason. He also scored a few important and crazy goals for Barça Athletic on his debut. Also, Gila scored together with Tony, which is also a very common thing that they do in the academy and for Spain, because remember that the day Tony became the youngest player to score for Spain under 16, I think it was. Gula also scored the same day against Malta, it was, and then they also scored the first goals for Barça Athletic on the same day as well. So it's like whenever one scores, the other one does as well. So it's a very funny thing if you look at it a bit closer. So yeah.
And one more funny thing that I would like to add is that Tony and Guye, so their fathers are brothers and their mothers are sisters. So it's the closest cousin that you can get. They're almost half brothers. So it's incredible. Not even in football, but in life in general.
We talk about Barca DNA, but I don't want to really go too far into the Fernandez DNA, as I think there'll be some odd alignments in there if we continue the trend of brother with brother and sister with sister. But we've naturally moved on to Tony Fernandez, and I think the one thing that I find really interesting about him is the fact that for me, he's played a lot of different positions, but I see him still purely as this shadow striker hanging behind the center forward. I've watched him on the wings also for Barça Athletic, and I've watched him also as a shadow striker, like I said. And for me, I see him truly as this Antoine Griezmann almost. I think, okay, maybe Antoine Griezmann isn't the best comparison for Barca fans, but the Atletico Antoine Griezmann in the shadow striker role is a superb player. And that's where I see Tony Fernandez playing his best football, but I don't necessarily see him being as versatile and adaptable as a Guille Fernandez, for example. So I would maybe end it by saying that Tony Fernandez maybe has the highest peak of the pair, but Guille would maybe be more adaptable to different systems and different style of footballs because he brings more different elements to the table, which I think also makes sense when we say Guille Fernandez is the Jude Bellingham type player. I mean, Jude can also play pretty much every role he's asked.
With Tony is a funny thing is that he started as a midfielder initially in his very early stages, and then he was developed into that false nine, scoring incredible amount of goals. I think he scored like 30 goals, also picking up 10 assists in 27 games for under, which was it, 15, I think. And it's usually very rare to see that amount of goals scored in La Masia for Football 11 side. With him, he can play as a 10, as a right winger, as a striker, or as a midfielder. He's capable of playing in those positions, but the problem is with him is difficult to see where his constant position will be because he has played in a lot of positions, but for Barça Athletic, I saw him play mostly as a right winger, and I think it might be suitable more for him because a striker he lacks a bit of that physicality to be in front of defenders, but his scoring ability is top notch. And as you mentioned, Griezmann comparison is a good one. While also his coaches compared to him to having that Pedri touch, So it depends where he plays, but for me, it's hard to see his constant position. That is my main worry with him, but he's definitely a top talent.
As we said an hour ago, that money can be a problem in football. I think versatility can be also a problem. Of course, it's great to be versatile, but it can be a curse as well. Because I also see Tony exclusively as a second striker right now. So a beautiful player to watch. I also agree. I compared him on FTS to Antoine Griezmann. I would say Antoine Griezmann from his second, third season because Griezmann had these roles on the pitch. Right now he's a central midfielder basically. So yeah, I see Tony. I see Tony there, and as we mentioned, Dani Rodriguez, that he's a fantastic player to watch. Tony Fernandez is also a fantastic player to watch. A player who was born to play in limited spaces. Like Guye is not a joy to watch. Let's say he's more of a efficient guy. So not a typical Amasia product, as we mentioned. But yeah, I'm a fan of Tony, and I will always be cheering for players like him. So players that actually gives you this joy of watching football. So I gave him 9 out of 10 potential, for Guye 10 out of 10, and I think it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I would say also with Tony, I mean, he's an absolutely exceptional player in tight spaces, but he isn't necessarily that diminutive, right? I mean, Danny Rodriguez is what, maybe 166, and Tony is 184 or 182 at least. So he's quite a tall player actually to be operating so efficiently in these tight rooms. And I watched 3 matches of Tony Fernandez, and one of them was on a turf pitch. And there you really see kind of the futsal qualities that he has. So much kind of sharp turns and body shifts with the sole of his foot on the ball. A lot of these V cuts, these Zidane-esque kind of movements on the ball. So yeah, I think what Yasek's saying there is really, really adamant in his game.
And I really think they both are always the best on the pitch when they play futsal. Incredible close control, incredible technique. So Tony and Guille Fernandez would surely make my futsal team if I would make one.
Yeah, I think quite a few of the Barcelona talents would, to be honest.